everybody. Welcome back, Devin, the OG, the original Grognard. Yes, we are doing something a little bit differently, and I just realized the acoustics in here is a bit echoey. We are not at my normal game table. In fact, we're not even at home at all. We're actually up at my LGS, something I thought I would never ever say again in this life. But yes, I found a new LGS in the local game store, for those of you who may not know what the term is, and I'm sure most of you already do. It actually in my hometown, which is kind of odd because there ain't a lot of people in my hometown, so I'm really rather grateful. Now, the one drawback is they really don't do war games. Well, they got Battletech, but, and I think they've got some Warma Hordes out there, but, that's miniatures, and I really don't do miniatures anymore. It's mainly Ameristyle, Eurostyle, hobby game. I really don't know what to call them anymore, but it's games other than, just normal war games, because they tend to be real popular right now. And regardless of all my efforts, I can't drag any of my friends into Hex Encounter because they're all losers. No, not really, but yeah, So our friend Deborah over at Geek Gamers, and if you haven't followed her, and I'm sure most everybody who follows me probably follows her, but if you haven't followed her, go over to YouTube, Geek Gamers, not to be confused with Geek Plus Gamers, just Geek Gamers, and I'll try to remember to put the link in the notes below, but everybody should know I sometimes forget that. I was mentioning that I play these hobby Euro Ameristyle games, and she was saying, well, what are your 5 favorite ones? Well, that's kind of hard. In war games, it's real easy for me to identify my top 5 favorite war games because the games have got such longevity to them in my mind and such replayability that I can go back 30, 40 years when I first started playing these silly, stupid things and say, all right, that was my favorite game then, it's still my favorite game now. These style of games, the hobby games, my mind changes every month. So what my top 5 favorite games now are different than what it was 6 months ago or a year ago or 5 years ago, and will be different 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. But right now, at this moment in time, we're going to go ahead and cover the top 5 hobbyist games that I play. And yeah, I realize I'm probably not going to get a lot of links on this or a lot of watches on that. That's fine. I'm doing this for me. So anyways, the first one, Clank. Clank. I like Clank. All right, now, this is, what does it say? Yes, a deck building adventure. I normally don't like deck builders. You're going to hear me say that a couple times throughout this. Usually, typically not a fan of deck builders, but I enjoy this one. This is kind of a push your luck game where you take the role of an adventurer and you're delving into a dungeon. And there are several maps depending on how many people are playing and what difficulty you want to play it as. One of the problems I always have with any type of hobby games remaining number 1 or even number 5 or even in my top 10 from time to time, from over time, it's just the longevity and the replayability of them. A lot of these games don't have a lot of replayability. I think that's something that the hobby is starting to realize, and they're doing what they can to change it. So this has got mounted hardwood boards like we used to see from Avalon Hill. I mean, you've got multiple boards for the number of players, plus how difficult you want to make it. So that gives us some replayability. And there has been a couple expansions. Acquisitions Incorporated has got an expansion that they did for this. There's a couple of expansions. I think they just come out with one, Dungeon of the Monkey King or something silly like that. But basically what the point is you start out up here. I think this is like the 3-player easy version. Let's see if I can find the one I'm more used to playing. That's the more difficult one. I think this is the one we typically play. That looks like that. Let me see. Nope, this is the one. All right. So 2 boards, and you got 4 different maps out of it. So 4 different styles of playing, 4 different ways of playing. But basically, you start off, and the object is for you to go through the dungeon to get down to where the dragon's treasure is, and there's a whole bunch of different dragon's treasures, and the deeper you go, the more value the dragon treasures are worth. It's like this one's worth 30, this one's worth 25, this one's worth 20. And there's a whole bunch of tokens on the board for, minor little random treasures that you'll come across, and you got to have certain skills to get past, or you got to have certain items to get past locked doors, and it costs more movement to get through, and the ice caves will stop movement, and there's combat and a whole bunch of stuff. It's kind of a push your luck deck builder, because as you're going down, you're making noise. You're making clank, where the name of the game comes from, clank, and you're waking up the dragon. And it's bad if the dragon wakes up, because the dragon starts to breathe fire and does damage to you. Each person's got their own health track down here. The more clank you produce, the better chances you have of waking up the dragon and getting fire breathed upon you. Well, the red dragon really starts to wake up when someone grabs one of his treasures and you try to make it back out of it. Because you get this little line of delineation. This is the dungeon. This is the upper castle where the dragon also kind of resides. So you don't take as much damage up here, but it's all gathering victory points, and a lot of victory points come from the treasures themselves. And so you go down, you get as much victory point treasure as you can, and then you try to make it up to the top. And as soon as you make it up to the top, then the dragon wakes up and he gets really, really pissed, and he starts breathing lots and lots of fire every turn. And basically, if you're the first person out, you're not going to take that much damage. And as soon as someone starts trying to make their way out, everybody else needs to start making their way out or get burned on by the dragon. And it's meeples. This is blue. You've got the normal character, and then they came out with a dwarf expansion, and that's if you're playing the dwarf expansion right there. But those are the health points, and there's, counters. We've all seen counters. We don't know what counters are. These are clipped already. Actually, they're all round, so it doesn't matter. But the core of the game is building your deck, and everybody starts off with 10 cards. And everybody starts off with the same selection of 10 cards. I think it's 2 scrambles, 2 side steps, 4 or 5 burgles, and a couple stumbles. So basically, you draw 5 cards a turn, and out of those 5 cards determines how many points you get to spend in your turn. Now, you've got footy movements, so that's how many spaces you can move, and you've got skill points, which is how much skill points you generate. But of course, like I said, everybody also has the famous stumble clank, where you're increasing the clank to wake up the dragon. Everybody starts off the same, but again, it's randomizing, so you don't know, you shuffle your deck, so you don't know exactly what order you're going to get the cards. Well, as I said, you get these skill points. And these skill points are important because that's what you use to buy more cards to fill out your deck. And there's this big old massive deck. And there are 7 cards that are always laid out at the top of the board, and they get refreshed every turn. So you decide which of these cards you want to purchase to add into your deck, into the discard pile, and that starts to fill out your deck. And when it comes in the rotation, you can get that card as part of your next play when it comes through. So, like say you want to pick up the dragon's egg. Okay, deep, you can only acquire it within the depths. And when you draw this card, you get to draw another card, and it's worth 10 victory points at the end of the game. If you have a mastery token, that's one of the things in the game. But here's part of the problem. Since it's a dragon's eye, it's one of the dragon's horde. Whenever you acquire it, the dragon starts to wake up more. And I think the cost, and that's victory points, which is variable at the end, but it costs five skill points to pick up this card to put it in your deck. And there's whole bunches like this one right here, the Shrine, costs 2. And when you use it, you either get 1 gold or 1 health back. You can have Swagger, which costs you 2 skill points. And for each clank you make this turn, if this is in your card and you pull it, you get 1 extra skill point. So if for whatever reason you make 3 clank, you will then get 3 skill points if this is one of the cards in your hand. And there are a lot of them. And there's monsters. You can fight monsters. There's, how many swords you have to generate to be able to beat them. And swords are another skill that you can get from the cards. Like this one, the Cleric of the Sun. It costs you 3 skill points to buy to put in your deck. When you acquire it, you get a heart, but whenever it comes up in your deck again, you get 2 skill points and a sword. Well, you turn around and use sword points to kill the monsters that are out there, and you get cool stuff. Like defeat, you get 3 gold, and all other players gain 1 clank, but it costs you 3 swords to defeat it. So, bunch of cards, really nice replayability, kind of short. It really is a race. I mean, honestly, if everybody knows what they're doing, you could probably pump out a game in less than an hour. And it's always good to try to get some type of mediocre rated treasure, and then run back to get out of the dungeon before the dragon starts breathing fire on everybody. So that's Clank. Companion game to that came out, Clank in Space, which is basically the same mechanics, although it's set on a spaceship. And you're trying to stop the evil Terminator bot from waking up and rampaging through you. Now, this is a little bit different. This uses, instead of just a set map board, this has a bunch of tiles that you put together. Now, really, the only difference in this game is that before you can go and get the quote-unquote dragon's treasure, I don't remember what the big bad in this is called, you have to get 2 key codes first. So, and you can only get 1 key code, and of course, the tiles are all double-sided. Let's see if I can remember. We've only played this one a couple times. I can find a place where key code is gotten from. Yeah, right here. Those are key codes. You need 2 key codes, and you can't grab more than 1 key code per tile. So if you grab a key code off of 1 tile, you're going to have to move to another tile to grab another key code. Now this makes the game last a little bit longer because there are several steps and several turns that you have to go through before you can run to get the dragon's treasure to run out. The game does scale, so you don't take as much damage in the early stages, and it's a lot easier to grab cash because there's a market that you can buy stuff from. I like Clank in Space more because it allows you to, the game plays longer, and it allows you to acquire more cards in your deck. And so here, and the card's pretty much the same way. Imprisoned Soldier is worth 5 victory points at the end, 5 skill, but you get 2 clank when you acquire draw a card. There is factions, and there are cards that give you bonuses if you use other faction cards. I don't think we used... Yeah, we never used any of these. These are different missions you can do while you're doing the game. But, I mean, it like I said, if you know how to play Clank, you're going to be able to fall into Clank in Space. And I think because Clank in Space was the game that came out after Clank, it plays better because they realized what mistakes they made in the general design of Clank and rectified it in Clank in Space. So if you like deck builders, if you like push your luck, go ahead and take a look at Clank and Clank in Space. Real fun. Now the next game we're going to take a look at that I enjoy is Quacks of Quedlinburg. Remember when I said I don't like deck building games? Yeah, this is another kind of deck building game. But this one has actually won a lot of awards. German game players of the year award. I mean, it's got 2 or 3 awards that this one gained. But the concept of this is you're a potion maker and you're making potions and you're trying to keep the potions from blowing up. Here's your cauldron. And basically, you're putting potion ingredients down, trying to get higher up and higher up and higher up. Because the higher you get, the more victory points you score, and the more cash you get to buy more ingredients. The problem comes in is that there are components that if you have too many of them in your potion will blow up. And since you're drawing all these potion components randomly, you never know when you're going to pull that last point that'll put you over the top and blow your potion up. Why is it important not to blow your potion up? Well, if you don't blow your potion up, wherever you stop at, the next token up, so like if 9 was the last ingredient you had, well, you'll get 2 victory points, And you'll get 10 gold to buy more ingredients with. If your potion blows up, you can only take one or the other. And honestly, beginning of the game, first couple 3 turns, if your potion blows up, it's not that big a deal. You're not losing that many victory points. And it's more important to try to get as much money as you can. And honestly, if you look right here, if you get to 10, 2 victory points. By the end of the game, you can push it all the way up to 35 and 15 victory points. So in one turn, you can get more victory points than you can collect in 3 turns of gameplay. So the cool thing about this is 4-player right now. There is an expansion coming out that's going to expand it to 6 players. Each person's got their own potion board. And there's 2 different types of potion boards. This is just the basic board. And then there's an advanced board. You get crystals, and you can use crystals to increase your phylactery. Not phylactery, these are just special bonuses. You spend 2 crystals, you move your drop up. You get a crystal here, you get a victory point here, you get a crow skull there, 2 victory points, black moon, different components and ingredients. Or you can spend 2 crystals to increase your teardrop in the potion thing, and that will push. So normally everybody starts at 1, but if you spend 2 crystals to push your teardrop up, well, now you're starting at level 1, so it's pushing you a little bit forward. And this kind of goes into a little bit of the mechanics of the game. The catch-up mechanics, you take a look at wherever you are on the victory point chart and wherever the person who's in lead is. So say for whatever reason I have 5 victory points and the person in lead has 15 victory points, which can happen very easily. You count up how many rat tails are between you and him. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 rat tails. That gives that person the ability to start higher up on the potion chain. So if he was at 0, but he had 4 rat tails, 1, 2, 3, 4, so he would start off at 4 rather than starting back at 0. So it's a little bit of a catch-up mechanic. It works. It's not a huge benefit because by the time you're getting to where you're getting large numbers of rat tails, your opponent is really far ahead of you. And how is this a deck builder? Well, you have potion ingredients. You have ingredients. And everybody has these white ingredients. Everybody's bag starts off with the same. You get 6 of these elderberry components, and these are the ones you want to look out for. These are the ones that'll blow up in your face if you get too many points. If you get more than 7 points worth of elderberries, then the potion blows up. So that's like a value 3 value. I think you start off with 1 value 3, 2 value 2s, and 3 or 4 value 1s. The value of the token is also how far you push up on the board. So if you get the level 3, or let's say we get the level 2 elderberry right off the start, you're starting at 0, well, you place it on the level 2 spot. If you get a level 1 component, it goes there. You get a level 3 component, 1, 2, you push it forward 3. So that's why you kind of always want to get more components with bigger numbers, because you're pushing your cauldron further along, which will get you more victory points and more cash to buy new ingredients. But again, if you get 7 of these elderberries on your board, your potion blows up. And the cool thing is there are a lot of components. You got bugs, you got pumpkins, you got mandrake, my favorite. Where's my favorite? Crow skull. Now, the other cool thing about this game and the replayability of it is that each potion, there are 4 books for each potion. And you can tell which book you're using by how many bookmarks are at the bottom. So right here, bookmark 1. So bookmark 1, if you want to buy a level 1 crow skull, it's going to cost you 5. Level 2 crow skull is going to cost you 10. Level 4 crow skull is going to cost you 19. So whenever you draw a level 1 crow skull, you get to draw 1 or 2 or 4, depending on which level you buy, from your bag. You may place one of them in your pot. So I love this one because I love going for the level 4, so I can draw 4 chits from my bag and see which one's the highest value one that isn't going to blow up my pot and put it back down. So that's the bookmark 1. But you go to bookmark 2 and the crow skull changes. If the pot explodes within the next 1, 2, or 4 chips, you get victory points and money during the evaluation phase, but no dice roll. So if you draw a level 2 chit, put it down in your potion pot, and then within 2 draws from your bag, your potion blows up, you still get victory points and money. So that's probably kind of good. And there are 4 of these for most of the potions. There are 2 that never change. The pumpkins and the black moons, I don't think ever change. So that increases the replayability. Plus, there's going to be like I said, there's an expansion coming out that's going to add 2 more players, plus a bunch more books and a bunch more components. But you've got your black bag here. This is where you're drawing your potion components from. You put all your potion ingredients in here, and you're just randomly drawing out. So yeah, I think, and there's a random card. There's a random event that happens every turn. You can trade one ruby for any 1 chip, not purple or black, and there's a whole bunch of those that you can go through. But this one is a lot of fun. We've played this a lot the last month. We've been trying with the various books, and so yeah, you're pushing your luck. You're trying to get as far up on the cauldron as you can without blowing your potion up, and really, so yeah, it's a fun game. And all these games that I'm mentioning, really, there are no gotcha mechanics. There's nothing that you can really do that can mess with an opposing player. It's just each person is doing their own thing in a race to try to get as many victory points as possible. So now normal war gamers don't like that, because most normal war gamers like conflict. I like conflict. I've always liked conflict. That's why I play war games. But these games don't really have that. There's no real gotcha mechanics in it, but I find them fun nevertheless. All right, it's kind of funny. We told one of our friends about this game. He had missed one of the weeks. We were telling Todd, yeah, you gotta play this new game, The Quacks of Quedlinburg. And of course, he heard quacks, and we didn't tell him anything about it. We pulled it out, and he discovered that it was potions, and quacks as in quack medical professionals trying to create potions in the medieval ages. He goes, I'm disappointed there's not ducks in it, because he thought the quacks meaning the ducks of Quedlinburg. We all got a good laugh out of that. Todd's usually one of our brightest players too. All right, so I got 2 games left I want to take a quick look at. And these are probably the top 2, and I'm waffling back and forth between which one I should show first, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and go with Wingspan first. Ugh. Wingspan! Wait a minute. It's got a picture of a bird on the cover. What the hell kind of game is this, Devin? Well, it's not a build your deck game. It's an engine building game, which is something totally different. But it is, at its core, a game about birds. And if anybody who knows me and is following me is going, what the hell are you talking about? You are trying to put birds into your bird preserve. And it's a victory point game. And it's got probably one of the worst dice towers I've ever seen in it. And I will mention, what do these look like? They look like Easter candy. These are the eggs. As first time I opened up this box and looked at it, it's like, who put Easter egg candy? And everybody in my gaming group thought the exact same. Then we play through a game of this. It's like, I want to eat these things. It looks like Easter candy. So, yes, it's a game about getting birds in your preserve and scoring as many victory points out of it. And again, there's no real gotcha mechanics in this. You're doing your own thing, building up your preserve, trying to get as many victory points you can. There's 3 types of birds, or bird environments: forested, plains, wetlands. And what I mean that this is an engine builder is that whenever you want to do an action, I think at the very start of the game, you start off with 7 actions. And so if you want to do an action, you place it down on the first spot that doesn't have a bird on it, and you get to do that action. So if you want to gain feed or food from the bird feeder, you've got a dice of food, because this is how you buy your birds, and you cycle through this a lot. That's why, I mean, the dice tower is kind of cool. You build it up. It looks like a birdhouse, but it's a little bit pain in the butt. But it's kind of a cool component to put in the game. So if you wanted to try to get some extra food to put out some of your birds, so you put your action token there, and so then you'll get to pull 1 food from the bird feeder. Well, say you put a bird on here, so the next time you do an action in this row, you put your token here, you'll get one food from the bird feeder, but now you can discard one of your cards for a second food. And say you have 2 birds there, the next time you put an action token down, you'll get 2 food. So the more birds you put in a row, the more reward you're going to get when you do an action on that. Now, the other cool thing about that is when you place an action on a row, on one of these 3 rows, so say I've got 2 birds here, I get my 2 food, then I start walking the action token back, and most of the birds have an effect on them as well, and you keep walking it back, doing the actions and the effects until you get to the very end. Now there is play a bird, which really doesn't, you know, it's just you play a bird. You pay the food to put a bird out. Where's the other? No, I think that's it. Gain food, lay eggs, draw bird cards, and play a bird. Yeah, those are all the actions. So, well, what are these birds? What is it about these birds that makes it kind of an engine builder? Well, let's take a look at some of them. So here's some bird cards right here, and the beautiful artwork. I mean, is that what yeah, California condor, nice. I haven't seen all the birds. I don't think there are any cassowaries in here. I don't think there's any ostriches, but there's a lot of really cool birds in here. And I think it's the same artist who did it all because all of the artworks look similar. Let's take a look at the anatomy of the card. So first of all, right up here, of course, you got the name plus the scientific name. This is a wetlands bird. So when you play this bird, it's going to go in a wetland spot. And it costs 1 fish plus 1 of any other type of food for you to put this out. So, all right, cool, there you go. That's how many victory points it has, and that's how many eggs it can lay in its nest. And that symbol right there means it can use it counts as any type of nest. So why do you need eggs? Well, if you take a look at the very top up here, you'll see if you want to put a bird in this second column, it's going to cost you at least 1 egg. If you want to put a bird in the 4th column, it's going to cost you 2 eggs. So you do, and there are other mechanics out there that you can use that eggs are used for. So, you know, you can see you have different types of nests, and there are different victory conditions that are determined on, all right, how many eggs do you have in a bowl nest on your birds, you know, stuff like that. So that's what the eggs are important for. But as I was saying, okay, now not all of them have an effect when they're on the board. Like this one, once between turns, when another player places a bird that is in the wetlands, you get 1 fish from the supply. So if this bird is anywhere on your board, if anybody places a bird in the wetlands on their board, you get 1 fish from the supply for that. Okay, but now let's go ahead and take a look at an action, part of the engine that I was talking about earlier. So when activated, turn a card from your hand behind this bird if you do draw 1 card. Okay, so what does that mean? So you got this set up. Say you've got that. Those are the 2 birds that you've got out so far. And say you want to play with one of your actions, draw a bird card. So you'll take your action token, you'll put it right here. First off, you'll get to draw 2 bird cards because this is where your action is. You draw 2 bird cards. Those go into your hand. Then you start walking your token back, doing the brown activities, the brown actions. So when you go to here, when activated, tuck a card from your hand behind this bird if you do draw 1 card. So say you've got, you know, 5 cards in your hand, which is actually a lot. You can go ahead and just take 1 bird at random and tuck it behind. Now, what that means is at the end of the game, this bird is going to be worth 1 + 1 victory point. So he's already worth 3 victory points, but any cards that are tucked behind a bird is worth another victory point. Now this one, the American Coot, is really cool because you're taking a card from your hand, putting it behind there, but you automatically are drawing a new card from the deck. That's a really nice card. I need to keep an eye out for that one because you're not losing anything. You're tucking a card away as a victory point, but you're immediately refilling your hand for 1 point. So you do that action, and you step it down again to the next bird, and this one, when activated, draw 1 bird card. So again, that's a really good bird to have out there as well. So basically, I started off at the beginning of the turn, drawing 2 cards. I went to here, I walked it back, I placed a card, I got 1 card back, and that gave me a victory point. And then I walked it back again, I got another card in my hand, and then I'm done. So that's what I mean by an engine builder. And, you know, obviously the more cards you have in a row when you play something on it, the bigger your engine is and the more stuff you're going to get out of it. And there are variable victory conditions. There are random victory conditions There are, actually, these are all the victory actually, those aren't. That's the solo play. There is actually a solo assistant for if you want to play the game solo. But you get you get two of these cards at the beginning of the game, and you get to keep one of them. So, Passerine Specialist. Birds with wingspans of 30 centimeters or less. At the end of the game, if you have 4 to 5 birds, that gives you 3 victory points. If you have 6 or more birds, you get 6 victory points. If you have 6 or more birds with a wingspan of 30 centimeters or less. And there's probably 40 different victory conditions or bonus victory points. There are ways that you can gain more of these cards during the game. And I think that's actually a pretty cool way to go, especially if you can attack some of the abilities. But yeah, that's and each round, the game goes 4 rounds. Each round, there's also a special victory condition. Let me see if I can find that. I just saw. Yeah, okay. So you got these, and you draw these all random at the beginning of the game and place them on this card for bonus victory points every round. And each of them are a little bit different. So it's like for this one, you get victory point. You count up who has the most birds in a wetlands environment. So if that was the victory condition or the bonus victory condition in round 1, you would count up, all right, who's got the most birds in wetlands? That'll go first place. Whoever has the highest. Second highest, third highest, fourth. And these will be bonus points that you get at the end of the game. If there's ties, there are some mechanics for that. And I'm not going to get into it because I'm just trying to do a quick overview of the game. But yeah, this one is really, really fun. Here's some of the food. You start off with one of each of the food types. And then after that, you need to try to get food from the bird feeder. So I can put that on there without squishing it too bad. So yeah, the cool thing about this is I think it can be reskinned real easy. I would love to see this with dinosaurs. I think this would be a phenomenal game that can be reskinned to include dinosaurs. So, but for some reason, this is just a fun game. It's fun. It's, oh my God, educational, because you're learning things about birds, and you know it's kind of calm and peaceful, and it's birds. You can go wrong with birds. So really fun game. Really hard for you to get your hands on right now. They really underestimated the popularity of this game, and this one for this year has won a lot of awards. The same awards that Quacksa-Quedlinburg won in Germany last year at, I think it's Eschenspiel or Spieltag at Essen, whatever the big gaming one is. This one, this is one of the highestly recommended. I think 10 or 15 years from now, I'm probably going to still have this as a fond memory in my all-time hobbyist games. So now the other one, and depending on which day of the week you ask me on or which hour you ask me, my favorite hobby game right now is either going to be Wingspan or Terraforming Mars. Both Wingspan and Terraforming Mars are phenomenal games. This one won a bunch of awards 4 or 5 years ago, and they are still putting out expansions for this. In fact, the newest expansion should be coming out within the next month or two, but yeah, there are several expansions for this. And, well, what is it a game of? Exactly what the title says. Terraforming Mars. You take the role of a corporation, and you're trying to terraform Mars to make it Earth-like. It's a little bit difficult because Mars is a giant rock. And the way you are doing it is you need to raise the oxygen level of the planet. You need to raise the temperature of the planet. And what's the other one? Just raise the general terraforming level. It's place all 9 water markers. Those are when the game ends, when oxygen hits 14%, all 9 ocean markers have been placed, and the temperature hits plus 8 degrees Celsius. Again, this really isn't a game where there aren't too many gotcha mechanics in this. You're trying to place forests and oceans can go in certain spaces, and cities, and you get victory points if at the end of the game for every city that's next to a forest, and you get bonus cash during the turn if you place a tile next to a forest or next to a water. A bunch of ways to build victory points. But the fun of it comes from all the different cards that you can use to try to terraform Mars and get yourself victory points out of it. So I got a bunch of cards. I mean, this is just one half of the deck. You got 3 different types of cards. You've got persistent effects, which are the blue cards. You've got the greens. Oh, I can't remember what they call the greens. I think they're one-shot uses. And then you've got red cards. Let's see if we can find a red card, which are sometimes they're only one use and then discarded. But a lot of the red cards are really, really powerful. And the red cards have some of the gotcha mechanics. Let's see if I can find one of the... It's like this one, land claim. You know, place a marker on a non-reserved area, only you may place a tile there. But some of the cards are, well, some of the red cards are dropping asteroids on the planet to increase the greenhouse gases to make the planet warmer. And there's one in here where you're using nuclear stockpiles from the world to detonate large nuclear blasts on the planet to increase the greenhouse gases and increase the temperature of the planet. If you don't like corporations, you're probably not going to like this card because, like I said, you are playing as a corporation, and corporations don't always play nice. But this is just a really, really fun game. Victory points based. The only gotcha mechanics are every once in a while, like, you know, if you drop an asteroid, you can drop it on one of your opponent's holdings and make them lose, you know, a little bit of their reserves and a little bit of their resources. And let's see. You know, each player has their own card for, you know, how much cash they're making a turn, how many minerals they're making a turn, how much titanium they're making a turn, how many plants they're making a turn, how much energy they're making a turn, how much heat they're making a turn. All these do for different things. Sometimes you get bonuses. If you've got a lot of minerals, you can burn the minerals to reduce the costs of like cities and stuff like that. Heat always, every time you have 8 heat built up in your reserve, you bleed it off to increase the temperature of the planet a little bit. So if you've got big factories going, and you know, factories that create energy, any excess energy is converted into heat, and then heat is into heat, and then heat is converted into oxygen level, because you know, you're increasing the temperature of the planet. But again, it's a victory point game. And you're starting off with basically Mars being, you know, a big rock. And some of the cards you can't play until like at least 3 ocean tiles are placed. Then I think that, you know, there's one wind turbine or ocean turbines, ocean power. You can place, you know, the technology card that gives you like +3 energy a turn, but you have to have 3 oceans out there first. And, you know, there's insect cards where it's like, all right, we start with ants, but the temperature has to be, you know, 0 degrees Celsius or something before you can start introducing ants into the habitat. But again, just a real fun. We've played this game. We've played this game 8 or 9 times. A buddy of mine, this is the storage copy. We've been playing that mostly. A buddy of mine just got his own copy, and Jay loved the man to death. He loves kick bashing everything. He does what I do whenever he's home and goes to Board Game Geek. But he has also got a 3D printer. So for the last week or so, he's been printing up furiously tiles for his set. So he's printed up ocean tiles, and he's printing up forest tiles and city tiles. So he's supposed to be bringing that tonight. I'll try to get a couple pictures of that. But yeah, all right, 40 minutes. My throat's about harshed out. Those right there are about the games that I enjoy playing, the hobbyist games, the Euro games, Ameristyle, whatever you want to call them. You know, the non-traditional, non-war game, more traditional style games, I guess you could say. So, and like I said, I am up here at my game store in Kent, Washington. It is called The Game Shelf, and is actually about 10 minutes away from me. So let's go ahead, and this is the back room where they do all the D&D stuff. They do D&D Thursday nights here. So let's just go ahead and take a quick look at the store as it is. Not a very big store, but it does. It's got a nice little fireplace over here. We have a couple people that are painting, but plenty of table space. So if you're in the Kent, Seattle area, Game Shelf, Kent, Washington, check out the website. I will try to put the URL in the notes section. That's all I got. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms in the comments section. I'll see everybody next time. See ya!